Hey, dude, who do we have on today?
Today, we have Bryan Falchuk. Now, listen, we're going to be talking about his insurance tech startup, how they're kind of disrupting the industry right now. He's also a TEDx speaker, and he wrote some killer books on attitude of gratitude.
Oh, man, we got to get in and listen to this guy.
Let's do it.
Welcome to The Insurance Dudes, a podcast for insurance agency owners helping us to think of different ways to optimize our business and our lives.
That
was awesome.
Is that a good intro?
Yeah, that was great.
We like to see the facial expressions, like what you're thinking.
That was sweet. I didn't know where you're going to come from, and I was not expecting below.
Yeah, a little shock and awe. We're thinking about throwing some lasers and smoke.
I like that. Yeah. Anything that's, I don't know, really disorienting. Gonna be good. Or seizure-inducing.
Yeah, just flashing lights.
Now that I'm not on the carrier side, I don't care anymore. I'm like, yeah, whatever screws with people, let's do it.
Yeah.
Or we're recording.
Oh, he's freezing. Yeah. He's having internet issue.
Am I freezing still?
That might have been me. Now what?
Yeah, you know what I think it was? I think it was Safari. And I got rid of it.
I'm going to quit Safari on that.
That's a good idea. Well, I'm glad that we're all Mac users. We got that out of the way.
Nice.
Desktop Safari's no good. Phone Safari's fine.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I'm a big Mac fan, but yeah, browser-wise.
You mean from McDonald's?
Yeah. I'm vegan, so not so much.
Yeah, no, I don't go to McDonald's either. Vegan?
Yeah, I'm vegan.
How'd you end up there?
Well, I'm vegan, I don't drink, and I work in insurance, so you can tell, like, people love me, right? I'm super cool.
Yeah.
We don't drink either.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
We don't drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy in insurance. It's kind of all people think about. I'm at a conference right now, and it's like, people are just like, when is the bar open?
Yeah. That's it.
That used to be me.
Yeah.
And that.
It's because here's the deal is that as an insurance agent, you really don't have to do that much.
I'm not commenting on that at all. I'm not touching that.
I would say it's a little bit of a lazy industry. A little bit. Doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Well, the nuclear physicists do not gravitate to the insurance world.
Nuclear physics. You guys are as funny as your Instagram memes. It's equally witty. I love it.
We like to, kind of our motto is insurance is so boring, but it doesn't have to be, but like it's boring. So
yeah, I've been in the specialty line side for a while, and it's definitely more interesting there. And now I just get to say I work at a tech company, and I don't need to mention insurance to normal people. So I got that.
They don't start running the opposite direction the second you say what you.
Well, it's like I met my wife when I was unemployed and in debt in business school, because that's more attractive than my name's Bryan and I work in insurance. That's the only reason she's like, yes.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry, Jason. I just always
No, do it. I love it.
I have noticed in the 10 years of being an agent, not once has a girl said, and I didn't want her to. I've been married, but nobody's ever said, "Oh, awesome," and
wow, that's hot.
I'm not beating anybody off, with the bat to keep them away. So, wow, way to just botch that joke.
Yeah, if you want to shut down a conversation, if you're in a group full of people and you just you don't want to be bothered, it's like, yeah, I'm in insurance, and then you're done. No one's gonna bother you.
What do you guys think about risk transfer? Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah.
No, we can't.
Oh, that's funny.
Plays.
Oh, so Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. So tell us a little bit about your background and what you do, because for the people that don't know out there.
So it's very varied. So I've been in P&C for like 20 years, and a lot of it spent kind of doing consulting work. So I started off at Liberty Mutual and was an internal strategy consultant there. So I got to work across like lots of different businesses and geographies, which is awesome. And I worked at McKinsey and same thing, just for other carriers. But then I went into the specialty line space, and that's really neat. Just the idea that, like, I don't know, very different, unique kinds of lines of coverage and businesses. And from an underwriting standpoint, you have to be profitable and not just make it up on the investing, which like the early 2000s was, industry was writing at like 103 or 108, whatever combined ratio. So that was pretty cool. It's just a world I didn't know about, and I loved it, and I did really well. And I ended up as chief claims officer for a specialist carrier. So everything was going great, and dream job. And then I left. And I joined this tech startup that I was a customer of. I was one of their first customers, this company, HiMarley, and I've been advising them. And they were getting their Series A funding in place and wanted someone to come on board and represent the customer. And so I did. I've been a customer, so that kind of works well. And that's where I'm at now. And that's one half of my life. The other half, I'm an author and life and executive coach, and I do TED Talks and other fun stuff and podcasts. So I get a weird combination of things that I do, but that's me in a nutshell.
Dude, that's awesome. And that is very exciting, and I definitely want to get to it, but tell us a little bit about the company and what you do with them.
Yeah. And the thing everyone wants to know is HiMarley, like what's the name about?
Yeah.
So I'll leave a little bit to the imagination with that. But HiMarley is basically, it's a messaging solution. It's a messaging platform for the insurance ecosystem, which is a phrase that maybe doesn't mean anything to people. But if you're in the insurance space, what you get is insurance is not one-to-one. It's not my claims handler and me as the insured or the claimant. It's those two plus like the body shop and the rental car and the supervisor and the total loss person, or in comp, it's like, well, what about the nurse case manager? Or what about my agent? Where are they in this equation? So we're possibly, or yelling at the carrier, but either way, the worst thing for an agent is to be like, checking in on their insured and then being like, well, I didn't know a tree fell through your house. I mean, that's not a great place for them to be, so they want to know what's going on, and they want to be able to help when they're needed. And I hope, that's what we tend to hear. And the insured just wants a consistent, cohesive experience. And the thing is, with every other business they work with, things have moved on. It's digital. It's coming through the channels they want to communicate via. It's not phone tag. Like, they don't want a phone call, because how many people get legitimate phone calls these days? It's all spammers. And it's surprisingly, it's not email anymore. Email has been, now it's like 3-4 days till you hear back from people, and it's not quite what you asked them. So then you got to go back again. And so things are taking too long and I hate to say it, fax machines. I think there's only 3 industries where fax machines are still sold, and it's like insurance, doctor's offices, and lawyers, and that's it. Like, no one else has a fax machine except maybe like FedEx in their FedEx office locations.
It is insane.
Yeah, but we still use them. I talk to carriers who are 40 to 60% of their first notice of loss comes through fax. It's like, well, how is that helpful? I'm like, oh, well, we digitize them. Like, that's great. It's just a PDF, but that's not digitizing it. That's just paperless. Customers don't want that. Everything else they're doing is through an app, through messaging, through a web interface, and they're self-serving a lot of times, and it's instantaneous and it's to their needs. And then they've got us. And it's not just they've got us at a time when their life's actually got a problem. So like a tree fell through your house, you got in a car accident, somebody died. Like, it's serious stuff. You're at your most vulnerable, most needy moment, and it's the most difficult way of interacting. And so HiMarley is trying to solve for that by letting people text with their insurer the way they text with anybody else. Just use the app you have already on your phone, even your flip phone, and let the carriers sort of run quarterback with their own people, handling the claim, or maybe it's at the point of sale and underwriting or service, whatever the interaction is. But let the person at the carrier run quarterback and really rope in the right people at the right time in that process to keep the whole thing moving. But in one conversation, not, okay, I'm going to go talk to the nurse case manager and they'll reach out to you when they, whenever they're free to do that. It's like, well, why aren't they in this? We have group texts with lots of people. Why can't they be in the conversation right now? Why am I going to
Yeah.
give you a phone number and a code to go call Enterprise Rent a Car? Why isn't Enterprise talking in this conversation right now? Or better yet, like, you can text and send information. Like, why aren't you texting with their booking tools and booking the rental car yourself? Just, you know, by communicating. So you start to open up all these possibilities. And I will admit, I didn't get it. I was a chief claims officer. The founders pitched me on it, and I was like, yeah, I don't really text. I don't know. And I went back and I told my team, and they looked at me like, you're the biggest idiot we've ever met. Do you not know how hard it is? Like, we can't get in touch with people. And so claims that maybe would only take a few hours of effort end up taking weeks just because we can't talk to people. And that whole time, the severity is creeping up. You know, the claim handlers are tied up doing kind of busy work because they're not making progress, and the customers are unhappy. And so we piloted it, and we were blown away. Like, even the most optimistic people the benefits were even stronger than they imagined. And I was totally sold. So I joined the team to represent the customer side because I was a customer. So, you know, sales, but also what we call customer success. So helping carriers go live in the platform and really have a successful life with it, and have it help them transform that customer interaction. It's pretty cool. Like, it's just text messaging and it's insurance, and that's an easy way to blow the whole thing off. It's really powerful just how that simple change in communication to a cohesive, friendly interaction, that redefines the whole thing, which is awesome to watch.
Yeah. And what an amount of time saved all throughout on every level, the agency level. Like, if we could just know all what's going on in the conversations like that, it would be kind of a game changer.
Yeah. And you have the text, like, can you just flip through it and see, like, oh, this is what's going on. I'm now up to speed, and I don't have to feel like when I see them, you know, wherever around town, that I have to look like an idiot because I don't know what happened to them. That's not fair to the agent.
Does it support emojis?
It does. Yeah. When we did the pilot, it didn't. And so we do these little, like, customer sat surveys, and people were texting back like, it was great. We get these question marks, and we're like, that doesn't make sense. We find out they're sending emojis, and they're coming through as question marks. So customers are sending hearts and smiley faces and thumbs up and fist bumps to their insurance carrier. Are you kidding me? Who would have thought that, right? No one sent the poop emoji yet. Like, if that happens, we've got a customer satisfaction problem. No. Give me your number. No. Oh, I've received it, but HiMarley hasn't. No, I think that's really cool. Like, people are, who would send a heart, you know, a love face, like the smiley face with the hearts busting out of its eyes? Like, who's sending that to their insurance company?
But here's the deal. This is what's crazy, is that people don't realize that the way we're communicating, like, emojis is literally a part of our communication now. It's not this thing that came along that's funny. It's literally showing people our emotion, and people are using it as that. To your point, in insurance, that's crazy. But
I just think the fact that you're going to tell your insurance company you love them, like, that only happens in insurance commercials, but we're actually going to see it live. So, like, we've seen the customer satisfaction's gone through the roof, which is awesome. We get carriers who are like a full point, you know, like 5 stars, they're a full star higher than they have been otherwise. We're seeing claims close 22% faster.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we're seeing loss costs come down because people are getting back up and running, not continuing on with rental cars, and their car's not in storage, and they're not, you know, they're getting back to work in comp. They're not still, you know, going to doctor's visits and medications and all that. Like, that's kind of the point. When I was a CCO, if my CEO was like, you got to cut indemnity by 12%, I'd look at him like, do you want me to break the law? Like, I don't know how to do that other than just not paying things I should pay. So the fact that changing communication can do that, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, that's cool. And so is this B2B? How many carriers do you guys have? Who's using it?
Yeah, so right now it's a B2B solution. We go through carriers, and they would bring in their ecosystem. It's still pretty early days for us. So we just passed the 1-year mark with our first carriers. My old carrier is renewing next month, I hope. No pressure on them. I'm not there anymore, so I can't force the renewal, but we'll see what happens. So we got a number of carriers that are live now across personal, commercial, you know, auto, property, homeowners on the personal side, workers' comp, GL, BOP. It's literally across the board. we've got a number in a pretty large number in pilot or trial right now or through the summer. So some big names that talk to me at the end of the summer and we can share them, but it's really exciting to see.
Is there
so that's
perhaps
awesome.
a company that does this?
I don't know what you're doing, and if I did, I wouldn't be able to say anything. But
Okay.
asking for money, I don't know what is that. No, we've got some great companies. So I worked at Hiscox USA. It's a specialist commercial lines carrier, so they're live on it.
Mayhem.
QBE, West Bend. If you guys are anyone in the Midwest, West Bend's a fantastic carrier out of Wisconsin. So yeah, some great carriers right now. We've got some that are cat exposed out in Florida. And then some names that, non-insurance people would know in a heartbeat, regardless of what part of the country they live on. That'll be coming pretty soon. In all states, yes.
In all states.
Yeah, I know what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
Go.
Is there but only at the enterprise level, right? You're working at the enterprise level, not I guess, I don't know what you'd call it, retail, working with an agency, if an agent wanted to get it?
Not yet.
No. Ooh.
But it's early days. It's early days. Yeah.
So there'll be an API and ways to integrate and all that.
There is an API already. Yeah. So like QBE put out a press release. We're integrated with their core system already. The cool thing is it can go both ways. So I couldn't do an integration because we had a whole system project going on, and IT was like, no new stuff on the old system. So we can stand it up, standalone, literally. Like the team at HiMarley came in 2.5 hours, coffee and bagels and training, and we were live handling claims with it. Totally, the only requirement was you need Google Chrome. Talking about Safari before, like it works in Chrome. It actually works in Safari, but Chrome's the best experience for it. That's it. And then if you want the APIs, they're all there. So we've got Guidewires live. We've got some Duck Creek stuff coming out this summer. The APIs are built, but they'll be live in Duck Creek, and then some other core systems as well. So it's easy to integrate.
So let me take a stab at it because I'm still confused a little bit.
Okay.
It's this hub that connects all of the different players, but it makes it look like it's just you texting.
Yeah, to the customer, it's just texting as they would with anybody else.
Okay.
There's a web interface. I mean, if you guys have used Apple, people use messages on your computer. You got messages on the side, and it looks the same as that. It looks like an email interface. It's just messaging. So that's why the training is pretty low burden or low complexity. Is like, have you ever sent an email before? And you probably understand the look and feel of this. You send a text message, you can figure out how to use it. For the customers, it was really important. There is no learning curve. There's no, you're at the side of the road when you get in a car accident. That's not the time to download your carrier's app, which is usually what ends up happening. It's like, how's my 4G signal? Waving your hand around, trying to get it to download. Just send a text message.
It's so funny. So you think about it, it's the most logical, basic solution to that problem.
Yeah.
And it's funny that it's not
the last one people look at.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, so like I'm at this claims conference right now. I spoke here 3 years ago when it was starting up, and apps were a big debate, and everyone's like, the whole thing was, people don't want your app. There's this many apps on the phone. People want to take them off. And so the conversation amongst all the carriers turned to, how do we get people to download and keep our app? And so they start talking about, do we integrate Amazon shopping in there? Do we integrate? I'm like, wait a second.
Right.
No one is going to go to their like, no offense to, I'm an Amica insured. So like, I'll use my own use case. I'm not going to go to the Amica app to buy whatever shampoo from Amazon, or like shoes, or whatever it is. Like, I'm not going to go to Amica I'm going to go to the Amazon app. I'm never going to think to go to the Amica app to do that. No offense to Amica, but that's not going to happen. You are thinking about this backwards. Don't try to, I'm like, what if we integrated Netflix into our app? Like, would people come to the Geico app to watch Stranger Things? Probably not. Maybe. But so it's just, you're going about it the wrong way. Ask the customers what they actually want, And then, and that's new, and I get it. You know, I've been at big carriers and small, and that's a tough thing to do. And customers don't necessarily know. But what I've noticed is when they tell you, if it's not what you were hoping they're answering, or it's not what your plans are, you tend to dismiss it. And I've seen that where it's like the number one thing they said is X. Number 3 is the one you're saying. So it's like one of the top 3 is what we're investing in. It's like, that's great, but you just ignored 70%, so they wanted that one. Just ask them.
If they have to go back to the drawing board, they don't want to go do that work again.
Right. And the cool thing is it's simple, and you can put it in place really easily. So try it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. You haven't done this heavy integration. You haven't invested a lot, or, it's time. It's people's time. Try it out for 30 days, see what it's like. And you may, we've had carriers who are just kind of surprised, like I was, just how much you can start to change. And maybe it gives you some ideas about a different way to structure things, to handle your claims, interact with your customers, because suddenly you've got a different tool to do it with.
That's cool. So tell us a little bit more about you. Tell us about what you've written, being a coach. TEDx is, I gotta hear about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, we got to get TEDx insurance going. I don't know that those videos would get downloaded. Maybe. All right. Enough insurance bashing. It's as bad as millennial bashing, I guess. So I've been really obese in my past. I grew up the fat kid, and that defined a lot of who I was. And I lost a bunch of weight, but I didn't really deal with why I was obese. And then bag is my parents' fault, right? Like, grew up, family got divorced, and I had lots of issues with that. I was really little when it happened. It just left me feeling very insecure about things going wrong. I was like 5. And so it's like, your whole world comes apart and you don't really understand what that means. So I turned to food, totally normal kind of reaction. I certainly didn't understand my emotions at the time, but I always had this anxiety that things were falling apart. And the irony is I ended up being a management consultant, which, like, my job, I was paid to see what things were falling apart and fix them. So it was like reinforcing my anxiety, rewarding me for my anxiety, really. So I lost some weight, I lost 100 pounds. Wow. And then I just sort of turned American and like put about half of it back on. I never looked obese again. I just looked like everybody else, but I was certainly not fit. I was not happy. And in 2011, I was a father of a 2-year-old, and my wife got incredibly sick, and she just kept getting worse and worse and worse. She's bedridden, she's wasting away. And on June 30th, I get this call from her doctor who's like, yeah, I don't really know what else to do. I think she's just depressed, and I'm going on vacation. I'll talk to you in 6 weeks. I'm like, she's losing 2 pounds a day. She barely weighs 100 pounds. She's clearly not just depressed. She's depressed, but like, how would you feel if you were in that spot? She's not going to be here in 6 weeks. And his response to that, honestly, do the math, like 100 pounds, 2 pounds a day, she's not going to survive. He's like, oh, okay, well, take her to the ER if you need to. And he hung up. And so that was a tough moment. I walked back into our bedroom and my son's standing there. He's looking at, mommy in bed. He's basically watching his mother die, and he turns and looks at me. And when his eyes met me, like, that was it. I was like, what in God's name are you doing? Like, I'm not living the way I need to live. I'm miserable. I'm certainly not helping her. I'm so anxiety ridden. All I can see is everything that's going wrong, and I'm very reactive to it. I'm like super touchy and kind of lashing out at everything. Like, he'll ask me to read to him. It's like, I can't do that. I have to make dinner and clean this, and and I'm trying to work, and like, because she can't do anything. I'm trying to take care of her and take care of him and keep a job and keep the lights on, and I'm freaking out. That I needed that. I needed that moment to just get kicked in the face and realize, for his sake, like, if I had anxiety from my parents getting divorced, watching your mother die, that clearly would lead to much bigger issues. And the only parent he's going to have is me. And this is the way I'm behaving. And this is what he's like. He's going to have such issues. And it's on me to make sure that doesn't happen. And I love that kid more than anything. So, that's not okay. And for her sake, like, I'm not supporting her. I'm reacting to her. And like, I'm doing things, I'm taking care of her, but I'm not taking care of the person she is. And when she's trying to confide in me, I'm so reactive to all the bad news that I'm like, you just have to do this, or I'm just not standing with her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, I was failing myself, because it's a really miserable way to live. And I always justified that. It's like, when I'm protecting myself and I'm keeping the sky from falling and I'm saving myself, all the things I had to do for myself as a kid, or, the sky really is falling now. And like, my anxiety is helping me because it's keeping me on top of it. And it's like, it's not, because every time I've said this is the end and the world is, like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, why am I still standing? Like, how is it that I'm still here and still, from the outside, probably thriving, despite me insisting that this is the worst thing that could possibly ever happen and there's no way out of it? Like, I shouldn't still be alive if that's really true. So obviously I've got it wrong. And that's what hit me in the face on that day. And everything turned around from there. And that's July 1st, 2011 is when this movement for myself, I call Do a Day, was born. And it was like realizing all this, and I reflected a ton on it. My wife is still alive. Not because I saved her life, she saved her life, but I supported her in it in a way that I wasn't doing before. Instead of being 50 pounds overweight, I lost 50 pounds, and I've run a marathon now. I've done a bunch of century rides. And it's just a number of things in my life that's changed. I finally addressed the anxiety. I still have it. I still live with it, but I'm aware of it and I know what to do about it. And I started coaching people because they watched me transform. And so I had friends who'd be like, hey, I've seen your pictures on Facebook. I've seen the stuff you're doing. I've talked to you. I'm really struggling and it feels similar to where you're at. Can you, like, how did you do it? Can you talk to me? So I sort of fell into coaching people. One thing just led to another. And I ended up writing a book that's called Do a Day. It's this approach that I use. Did a TED talk on that. I've been on, like, this is a number 140 podcast appearance.
The best one.
The best one. It took me 139 failures and I'm finally there.
Finally. Nailed it.
The insurance dudes is launching things. But yeah, it's been awesome. It's been really awesome. And, for the book's like just over 2 years old. For the first 18 months or so of that, literally every single day, someone reached out in some way, shape, or form, of social media, email, whatever, or in person, or I'd get cards in the mail just to tell me like their story and how it touched them. And that's why I did it. I didn't write the book to retire or make millions. The average book sells 249 copies a year and you get like $2 to $3 per book. So I make slightly more than $750 in my job. So I'm like, all right, I'm not ready to retire off that. It's not about the money. It's about the impact. I've been really lucky. It's had a much broader impact than, the average book might have, but it's that feeling that like there was a point to this and I'm helping people and people were struggling. That's why I do what I do. And honestly, like, that's kind of where I got to when I got into claims and the work in HiMarley. And that's not me like bringing it full circle to pitch anything. It's like, look, we're trying to help people get their lives back together at the worst possible moment. There's minor claims, but like a lot of these are really serious. And like, that's what I love about HiMarley is I can see the conversation. I can see people who got into this industry to help, who kind of got pulled away from that and maybe a bit jaded because of all the process and the difficulty and moving to resolution. They're free again to just help someone. That's really awesome to watch. So I feel really like it's easy for me to have sales as one of my responsibilities. I'm not a sales guy, but I do it because it's like I'm talking about something I truly believe makes a difference. It's really easy to do that. So yeah, that's me. And I like long watches on the beach, long walks on the beach. No, I don't know. I felt like I had to get like in the typical mushy.
No, it's great. It's good to keep us in check, to be purpose driven. How many times are we looking at like a monetary gain or some sort of gain? Like, oh, I got to make money to do this and that. And it's like, why are we making money? Like,
yeah,
what's the purpose? I mean, we live in a society now where, we're in, what is it? Like the top 1% of the world just living in the US. So it's like now we're kind of on that Maslow's hierarchy of need, where we do need to be purpose driven because we do have it so easy. And I think that does mess with our heads a little bit. And if we're not, I think that it's kind of depressing. It definitely adds value.
When you end up, I would say it's like being an employee of your life. Like you're just kind of going through the motions. Like how many people really stop and think, are you enjoying what you're doing? Why are you even doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this idea that like, well, you're not supposed to, that's why it's called work. Haha. I get that. But like, forget the work part. Like overall in your life, how do you feel about it? I think a lot of people are just kind of mindlessly going through it because it's what you got to do. You pay the bills and you do this. There's all these responsibilities. Like, yeah, but you can do all that in a way that you actually care about and love, or at least there are aspects that you may not, but relate them back to the ones you do. Like, why do you pay the bills if you hate doing it so much? It's like, well, do you love your family? Do you like having a place to rest your head at night? And you got to pay the bills for that. So appreciate it instead of looking at it as a negative. And your job is not to pay bills, which you hate doing. It's like, well, it's so my family has a place to live and I love that. And so the bills are about facilitating it, and to pay those bills, it means working in a job. And so you start to remove some of the distaste for it. And then maybe that gives you some freedom to think about, well, what do you want to do? And maybe there are ways to do that in the situation you're in. Maybe it means you need to make a change. They're not easy decisions. I walked away from the best job I've ever had for a significant pay cut because it's startup world. And because I cared about that. I made that decision consciously, and there were changes that we made as a family and planning and saving and all that. But like, you got to do what you care about. Nothing's free. The best paying job in the world comes with sacrifices. So you got to think about that full picture and at least make sure you're making the right sacrifices for what your priorities are. But you got to know those priorities to make those calls.
Goes back to clarity. We just talked to somebody about clarity, having clarity in your life, so that you do have that homing beacon of, it can't all just be monetary. Even if it's monetary, it's got to be for a reason. Like you got to have clarity on why. There's got to be whys.
For sure. Yep.
Are there any other books on the horizon?
Yes. So as we're recording this, my editor was supposed to get me book number 2 back last week. He said he's going to get it to me today because I got a long wait in an airport tomorrow. So I want to dig in, but book number 2, hopefully by tomorrow, I'll have the draft of it back, but it's written. And hopefully it doesn't need to change at all, but I'm sure there'll be a few edits. My goal for that is by the end of the year. So that my second TED Talk was actually tied to the book. It's called the 50, 75, 100 solution. It's all about relationship dysfunction and what our role is in it and how we can solve for that. So do a day is kind of your relationship dysfunction with yourself, and how can you change your relationship with yourself and your understanding of yourself and move that forward. 50, 75, 100 is your relationship with others and what your hand is in it. Like they're doing this to you. You're perfect. It's all them. Well, okay, let's maybe not. But whether you're the cause of the problem or not, you can still be the source of the solution. And that's seeing your role in their behavior, which is a really interesting spin on it. It's like, everyone's like, turn the other cheek or be kind or whatever, but to understand why that matters and how you can affect change in the terrible behavior that you perceive from them. It's actually really empowering to recognize, like, if this person's terrible to you, you actually might be able to flip that around a little bit. It might take some time, but you can do it. It's not just like romantic relationships, not spouses. And it's like, yes, it works there, but as business, even just casual relationships, I tell a story about getting stuck in traffic. A guy who cut me off, like I'll never see him again. I don't like telling the story because I feel like then people think like, oh, just find Bryan and cut him off. Cause I was like, I smiled. Like, I don't actually like being cut off, but I recognize like he's just trying to get where he's going, just like me. He didn't like get onto the highway and be like, where's that blue car? And find him and cut him off. It's like, I have nothing to do with it. It's not a personal thing about me. He's just pursuing what would bring him happiness, and it happened to come at my expense. We can't both eat the last cookie. Only one of us can get that. And so it means the other one's inherently going to be let down if that's how they choose to feel about it. Cookies are really good. I get that.
Yeah. It's like the person that cuts you off or that you accidentally cut off and they're yelling at you. when in actuality, they were scared. They were worried that you were going to hurt somebody. So it it comes from a place of vulnerability, but it comes out the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it's like thinking like that. It's like, oh, just, yeah. I mean, I get it.
Well, and the guy who cut me off in the example, it actually did happen. It was a real story. He was a plumber, like he was in his, his plumber van. And one of the things I reflected on is like, maybe someone's toilet overflowed and he's like going to, save, like, let's not get into details, or maybe it's like, like my house flooded. In 2010, the water table in our town rose, and I woke up and walked down in the basement, and my foot was underwater, and the carpet was floating. And I thought it was just my eyes were like blurry. I'm like wiping my eyes. I'm like, no, but that doesn't explain why my foot's wet. So maybe it's something like that. Like maybe someone's got a burst pipe, and he's cutting people off because he's racing. Like, okay, that's a really good reason for you to get in front of me. And it's not as simple as like, oh, because he's trying to cut me off. That's a very like intentional, feel bad for yourself and be angry at the world kind of position. That's my choice to feel that way about it. There's lots of other stuff going on in the world. It's not about me. As much as you may feel that way at times, like people have other agendas.
That's what I was telling.
Uh-oh.
You're cutting each other off.
He froze. Oh, there you are. Well, it's just that mentality of, is it, I lost my train of thought.
I gotcha.
Are you going to let them affect, are you going to let the things on the outside that you can't control actually affect how you respond, right? You're in control of your response.
Yeah.
I guess. And you got to be mindful of that. A lot of people aren't even thinking at that level to look at that. Part of the transformation from drinking way too much to not drinking, you learn some of these skills along the way where, hey, it's not, I'm not number one. I have to look at what's going on around me and accept what's happening. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't control that he cut me off, whether he was good intention and he needs to go clean up the poo-poo that's over there, or he's just a jerk. It really doesn't matter. Yeah. Right. Your response to that is what matters.
Yeah.
I love not being pissed when it's all going nuts. Like you're just like, I like to observe it. Wow, they're really driving like cuckoos today. Oh, well,
Yeah. Traffic especially. That's a tough. Someone told me it's a team sport. If you look at it that way, it's like, oh, all right. Yeah. We all got to work together one way or the other.
We're all trying to get there.
Yeah.
I have a few kids, and man, like they'll say, oh, so-and-so made me so mad. I was like, no. They didn't make you mad. Like, or they'll not necessarily made you mad, but made me do this. And it's like, no. Like they did something and then you reacted a certain way. You have to realize you control your reactions.
Yeah.
Like that's a big lesson that I don't know a lot of humans learn, even in an older age. Like, like we're in control of ourselves 100%. So things, good and bad always happen.
Yeah.
That's just what happens.
Yeah. So I try to share some really it's concepts from Buddhism, 3 core concepts that come from Buddhism that certainly help me a lot in understanding, well, why is that and what could I do about it? And so I think appreciating a different perspective allows you to reframe in your mind, but it's a conscious effort and it takes work, and that's okay. The core starting place is this idea of happiness seeking. Like we all ultimately just seek our own happiness. And sometimes that's for the good of someone else. And sometimes it comes at the expense of someone else, but that never means that that's the intention. Even if it seems like, if you look at something like murder, how do you explain that? And that could be that person's definition of happiness. Maybe it's retribution, maybe it's a revenge, but like if they're just a cold-blooded murderer, it doesn't excuse it, but they just have a very different definition of happiness. And that's not one I would ever subscribe to or understand. But, there's something that they're trying to do that they believe will make them happier. They could be wrong. They could be very misunderstood. And so I want to clarify understanding people's reasoning or motives doesn't let them off the hook. That might explain why that doesn't make it okay. I'm not advocating for bad behavior. And there are certainly situations like domestic abuse that may not be the right time to try, let me just try to affect their behavior differently. And there are certain situations where actually you should get the right kind of help because safety is at stake, lives are at stake. Maybe it's true mental illness and there's other help that needs to be brought in. So there's, I think it's a very broad application for it. But there's some things that, I kind of disclaim, like, let's be honest, there are situations where maybe someone's life is in jeopardy or it's a true medical situation. Like you want to think about that a little bit differently.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good, man. You got a ton going on. What's in the cards? You got another book coming out?
Hopefully sleep at some point. I'm working on that.
How old's your kid?
He's 10.
10. Yeah. Any more?
Actually, he's 10 and a half. I'm looking at my watch. Well, okay, in 3 days, he'll be 10 and a half. Yeah. Yeah, I know. So, I mean, not to get too personal, but that, when my wife got sick is kind of when we would have had our next one. Right. And so she's still alive, but she's also still sick and it's not taking her life, but there's a fine balance of that. And so that's one of the things we've had to deal with. And there's moments of sadness around that. That's kind of like, she had seen herself having more kids and she's an unbelievable mother. And the flip side is, we kind of like her being alive. That's a plus. And we have an amazing son and we're so blessed for that. And so it's not, what we don't want for anything. So we'll see. Maybe I'm getting pretty gray and then beige up here. So we're getting a little bit old to keep thinking about that, but maybe adoption. Who knows? Yeah. We're not preoccupied with it.
In that chapter of your life and that story and the way what you've done by writing these books and stuff, it's definitely making huge impacts in multiple people's lives. So
trying to.
There's always good that comes out of these horrible situations that we have.
Yeah. I mean, we live our lives totally differently. And, we were saying the other day, like, obviously wouldn't wish this on anyone, but we also wouldn't wish away what we've gained from it. It's very true. Like there's silver linings to all of it. So I share that pretty candidly. I share my story in the hopes that pieces of it will resonate with people, but I also recognize not everyone's going to resonate with my story. So I also have a podcast and I've recorded like 70 episodes, 55 are out already. Other people with their stories, and different to my story so that, if you're listening and you, like I had this guy, Evan Ruggiero, who amazing guy. He's a one-legged tap dancer. He used to have two legs. He lost one to bone cancer when he was, I think he was like 19 or something, headed towards Broadway. So like living his dream, he had been committed for, a decade to this thing and ends up losing his leg after a very drawn out battle before that with cancer. And like they were saving his leg and then it just kept getting worse. And he's still dancing. Like I found him because he was on the Ellen show and like my son saw a clip somewhere and shared it with me. Wow. So, I haven't had cancer. So, sharing that story resonates with people. I've got, people who've lost a child, people who've been through, this is really ironic. Last year we had the worst wildfires in US history in California. During that wildfire, I interviewed someone who was a survivor of the prior worst wildfire, like weird timing, but worst wildfires in California history. Different kind of survival story. I didn't lose my wife. I'm interviewing someone in a couple of weeks who did. So, different stories out there. I think a lot of us need that point of reference to be like, yeah, that's me. I'm in that person's shoes and look where they are. It doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to be a collapse. So I share other stories in the hopes that, look, if one person hears that and has a tear and looks at themselves differently, job done.
Yeah. I mean, having that temperature of hot, seeing hot and cold and knowing where you're at, it makes it, gratitude, right? It just puts perspective on everything.
Yeah. So I'm pretty lucky I get to do this stuff. I would never have seen any of it coming. I'm psyched by it.
That's cool, man. And where you're at a insurance conference right now?
I am at the Connected Claims Conference in Chicago. I'm looking out at Lake Michigan. It's pretty thankful for that. At least it's sunny now. It was raining this morning, so I'm more thankful at the moment. But yeah, so I'm from Boston, but I am in Chicago today. I almost don't remember where I am half the time. I travel a lot.
Crazy. Claims conference.
Yeah. Super cool.
Have to pound a lot of Red Bull?
No.
I'm just joking.
It's insurance. So sleeping is insurance awake. Is that like, like it's not exciting, but it's insurance exciting. No, it's fine. Because I'm talking about HiMarley and I'm talking about stuff I love and I'm seeing people that, I've seen it. So it's all good. Yeah. I was a little bit afraid pausing to do the podcast. So like, oh God, if I like lay on my bed for the 5 minutes that I got back to my room early enough, like that's not a good idea. We're going to stay sitting in the chair until we start recording.
Awesome. Well, we always ask one question at the end is like, if you had the one piece of advice that you give, a lot of insurance agents listen to this podcast, obviously, what piece of advice would you give an insurance agent?
Yeah. So I'd say this is actually pretty broad brush, but specifically to an agent, because you're in ultimately a sales role, the difference between a top agent long-term and one who isn't is, are you seeking to solve people's needs or are you trying to make a sale? And the top salespeople right here and right now, from a new business standpoint, are probably the ones who are just focused on that hungry sale. More power to them. But the ones who have the book that renews, and renewals, that's the largely lower effort, best part of your book, performs better and all that, are the ones who see it from a point of gratitude and view it as, what can I do for you? There's similar industries like financial advisors. It's the same thing. I love my financial advisor because he's my friend. I don't know if, like genuinely if he sees me that way, but like that's a guy I trust. It would never occur to me to leave him. If I have anything remotely financial I want to talk about or think about, I know I can turn to him. That's what an agent really wants, because that's the book that just keeps generating, and the referral business and all that. So come from a point of, what can I do to help you? Don't worry about buying an insurance policy at the moment. Let's just talk about like, what are you facing? And in talking about that journey in life, you hear all the points of risk, and you hear I just did it yesterday with someone who, she started a recruiting business and it's doing great, but she's like, oh, I don't want to buy this policy or that. And I'm like, well, all right, let's think about where you're exposed. Like, what happens if this, like, what worries you right now in your business? Well, I've got these folks and they're doing that. I was like, yeah, so here's what a claim might look like. Is that something you can handle? And maybe the answer is yes, and she can self-insure. Maybe the answer is no. But just talking to her about her business and the risk that she faces that might be holding her back, that creates a different kind of conversation. I'm not an agent, so there's no commission in it for me, but just take that partnership approach. Ask how you can serve, and don't think about the commission. It's a relationship business. I know that's said a million times, but it's true. And there's no relationship with the the online aggregators or any of that. That's a transaction, and they're great and they work really well, but that's a transaction. You're not a transaction, so don't try to compete that way. Be a relationship and be the person who stands by that person, that insured no matter what, and they will always stand by you. That's how I see it.
Dude, that's wisdom right there. That's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Love it. Well, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Awesome to have you.
Let us know when your book drops.
Yeah. And people, if you go to bryanfalchuk.com, if you can spell that, you can keep tabs on it and sign up for my newsletter. Not that I don't really send much, but that's one of the things I'd alert people to. Hopefully it's before the holidays. I don't know which holidays or what year it'll be before them in, but that'll be this. It was supposed to be before the last TED Talk, and that was August of 2018. Because that TED Talk was on the book, but that just wasn't in the cards. But I will have it out before the end of the year. Cool. So lovely Christmas gift. Give it to your spouse and have them look at you like, what do you mean dysfunctional relationship? What's that about?
That's
Great.
awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bryan. You're a good dude.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So are you. Good insurance dudes or just regular dudes.
Regular dudes.
Yeah.
Dudes. Thank you, Bryan.
Your Insurance Dudes podcast is sponsored by Agency Vault, an industry leader in agency coaching, hiring and retaining top talent, and sales training with the 7-step trusted advisor sales framework. Are you up for the challenge? For $99, you'll get 28 days of access and an opportunity to join our private platinum coaching group. For more information, navigate to www.agencyvault.com.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Insurance Dudes. Hey, please subscribe. We got some really great stuff coming out.